A father's 70th birthday, a dining room dripping with old money and dangerous secrets. At the head of the table sits Marcus Hartwell, the millionaire heir, with a stunning brunette on his arm. The only problem, she is not his wife. He told his pregnant wife, Elena, that the dinner was canceled. He told his mistress, Vivian, that his marriage was over. He told his father that everything was under control. He thought he had orchestrated the perfect deception. He thought his money made him untouchable. He thought no one would ever discover the truth. But in exactly 90 minutes, his father will stand, raise his champagne glass, and deliver a birthday toast that will not celebrate a life. It will destroy one. Every lie, every betrayal, every stolen dollar, exposed in front of everyone who ever believed in him. But here is what makes this story different. Elena did not wait to be rescued. She did not cry in silence while her husband dismantled her life. When the system failed her, when even her own mother betrayed her, when they took her daughter away, she did not break. She became the architect of his destruction. Value statement. This story will show you what happens when a woman stops asking for permission and starts demanding justice. You will learn why the most dangerous person in any room is not the one with the most money. It is the one with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Meaning of the story. This is not just entertainment. This is a blueprint for survival. For every woman who has ever been gaslit, manipulated, or told she was too emotional to trust her own instincts. For every mother who has watched the system protect the abuser instead of the victim. For everyone who has been made to feel small by someone who feared their strength. The truth does not always win, but sometimes, if you are brave enough, smart enough, and stubborn enough, you can make your own justice. The champagne glass caught the light of the crystal chandelier, sending fractured rainbows across the mahogany walls of the Sterling Estate dining room. Richard Hartwell, patriarch of one of Connecticut's wealthiest families, stood at the head of the table on the evening of his 70th birthday. His silver hair immaculate, his pale blue eyes scanning the faces before him. His son Marcus sat frozen at the opposite end of the table, his handsome face drained of color. Beside him, a stunning brunette in a crimson Valentino dress clutched a diamond necklace at her throat. Her confident smile, now replaced by naked terror. And in the doorway, framed by the dark wood of the library entrance, stood Elena Hartwell, 7 months pregnant, uninvited, and ready to watch her husband's world burn. Richard raised his glass. "I would like to propose a toast," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man who had built an empire from nothing, to the truth. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how a single birthday dinner became the stage for the most spectacular destruction of a marriage, a career, and a family legacy, we need to go back 6 months. Back to when Elena Hartwell still believed in the life she had built. Back to when she still trusted the man she had married. Back to when she still had something left to lose. 6 months earlier, the Manhattan penthouse gleamed like a jewelry box in the late afternoon sun. $40 million of prime real estate, decorated by the city's most sought-after interior designer, featured in 3 separate architectural magazines. Elena Hartwell stood in her walk-in closet, which was larger than the apartment she had grown up in, trying to decide between a navy Roland Mouret dress and an emerald green design for tonight's charity gala. She caught her reflection in the full-length mirror. At 38, she was still striking, with honey blonde hair and intelligent gray eyes that had once intimidated opposing counsel in courtrooms across the eastern seaboard. But those eyes looked tired now. The sharp edges had softened into something that resembled resignation. "Mommy!" Lily burst through the closet door, a whirlwind of 6-year-old energy with her father's dark hair and her mother's determined chin. She held up a crayon drawing, her face beaming with pride. "Look what I made! It's our family!" Elena knelt down, ignoring the protest from her pregnant belly, and examined the drawing. 4 stick figures stood in front of a tall building. 2 parents, 1 child, and a smaller figure with a round belly. "That's you, that's me, that's the baby, and that's—" Lily's voice faltered slightly. "That's Daddy, but I had to draw him smaller because he's never home." Elena's heart clenched. "Daddy's very busy, sweetheart. He's building something important. He missed my dance recital again. He promised he would come this time. I know, baby. I know." Elena pulled her daughter close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, trying to ignore the familiar ache that had taken up permanent residence in her chest. She had been making excuses for Marcus for years now. His absences were sacrifices. His coldness was stress. Her loneliness was the price of the life he had provided. She told herself these lies so often that she had almost started to believe them. Later that evening, at the charity gala, Elena moved through the crowd with practiced grace. She smiled at the right people, made small talk about the right causes, and pretended not to notice that her husband had disappeared 20 minutes ago to take a phone call he claimed was urgent. "You look like you need a drink." Diana Torres appeared at her elbow, pressing a glass of champagne into her hand. Diana was Elena's oldest friend from law school, now a divorce attorney, with a reputation for eviscerating unfaithful husbands in court. She was also the only person who still called Elena on her excuses. "I'm pregnant, Diana." "Then you look like you need to sit down." Diana guided her to a quiet corner, her dark eyes sharp with concern. "Elena, when was the last time you actually practiced law?" "I'm on the board of 3 charities. I chair the Children's Hospital Fundraising Committee. I am practicing something. You gave up a partnership at Morrison and Blake for this. You used to be the shark. Now you're planning seating charts." Elena bristled. "Marriage is about compromise. Compromise is both people giving something up. What has Marcus sacrificed?" Diana paused, letting the question hang. "Listen to your gut. You taught me that in law school. Your instincts saved us in the Crawford case. Don't ignore them now." Elena opened her mouth to argue, Saum, but at that moment, she spotted Marcus across the room. He had finished his call and was laughing with a group of investors, his smile brilliant, his charm fully deployed. He caught her eye and raised his glass in a distant salute. He did not come over to join her. "My gut is fine," Elena said, but even she could hear the hollowness in her voice. "Everything is fine." Diana's expression said she knew better than to believe that, but she was a good enough friend not to push. Not yet. That night after the gala, Elena lay in their enormous bed, listening to Marcus breathe beside her. He had come home late, smelling of cologne that was not the brand she bought him. When she had asked about the phone call, he had waved it off as investor concerns. When she had mentioned that Lily was upset about the recital, he had mumbled something about making it up to her. In the darkness, Elena stared at the ceiling and tried to remember the last time her husband had looked at her the way he used to, the way that made her feel like she was the most important person in any room, the way that had convinced her to give up her career for his dreams. She could not remember, and that perhaps was the most terrifying thing of all. The lies we tell ourselves are the most dangerous kind. They settle into our bones, become part of our architecture, until one day we look in the mirror and cannot recognize the person staring back. Elena had built her entire adult life on a foundation of trust. Trust in her husband, trust in their partnership, trust that the sacrifices she made would be honored. She was about to discover just how misplaced that trust had been. The signs had been there for months, small things easily dismissed. The receipt from a restaurant she had never visited, crumpled at the bottom of his pocket. The new cologne that appeared in his bathroom, a musky scent she had not purchased. The way his phone was always face down now, screen hidden, as if it contained secrets he was not ready to share. Elena noticed. Of course she noticed. She had spent years reading body language and depositions, catching lies in the flicker of an eye or the tension of a jaw. But noticing and acknowledging were two very different things. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the architecture of her denial finally began to crack. She was putting away Marcus's dry cleaning, a task she usually left to their housekeeper, Maria, but had taken on herself in some misguided attempt to feel useful. As she hung his charcoal Armani suit, something fell from the inner pocket. A keycard, plain white plastic with a hotel logo embossed in gold, the Carlyle. Elena stared at it for a long moment. The Carlyle was 20 blocks from Marcus's office. There was no reason for him to have a room there, no reason she knew about. She was still holding it when Marcus walked in. His reaction happened in stages, like watching a storm roll across the horizon. First, surprise, then a flicker of something darker, quickly masked. Finally, controlled displeasure. "What are you doing?" "I was putting away your suit. This fell out." Marcus crossed the room in 3 quick strides, snatching the keycard from her fingers. "I have told you before, Maria handles my clothes. Don't touch my things." "Marcus, why do you have a hotel room key?" "It's for a client meeting. Discretion required. You wouldn't understand." His voice was cold, dismissive. The voice of a man speaking to an employee who had overstepped. Elena felt something shift in her chest, a crack forming in the wall she had so carefully built. What kind of meeting requires a hotel room? The kind that pays for all of this. Marcus gestured at the closet, at the penthouse, at the life she lived. "I don't question how you spend my money. Don't question how I make it." He left without another word. Elena stood alone among racks of designer clothes that suddenly felt like a costume. The woman who had once commanded courtrooms, who had made senior partners nervous with her preparation, that woman would have demanded answers, would have refused to be dismissed. But that woman had disappeared somewhere along the way, buried under charity committees and society events and the slow erosion of her own identity. That night, Elena dreamed of drowning in a sea of silk and diamonds, reaching for a hand that kept pulling away. The decision to hire a private investigator came 2 weeks later, after a pattern had emerged. Late nights that did not match his calendar, business trips to cities where his company had no presence, and always, always, the phone that he guarded like it contained nuclear codes. James Walker operated out of a modest office in Queens, a world away from the gleaming towers of Manhattan. He was a former FBI agent in his late 50s, with a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. "Mrs. Hartwell." He gestured to a worn leather chair. "Have a seat." Elena sat, her Hermes bag looking absurdly out of place against the industrial carpet. "I need you to investigate my husband." "Most people who walk through that door do." Walker leaned back, studying her. "I'm going to be straight with you. 90% of the time, when a wife walks through that door, she already knows. She's just looking for permission to believe what her gut's been screaming." "I'm a lawyer. I don't operate on gut feelings. I need evidence." Walker's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Good. Because evidence wins custody cases. Feelings don't." The word custody hit Elena like a physical blow. She had been so focused on the affair, on the betrayal, that she had not let herself think about what came next. Lily, the baby growing inside her, a custody battle against a man with unlimited resources. First rule, Walker continued, don't confront him. Not yet. Cheaters who feel cornered do stupid things. They hide assets. They poison kids against their mothers. They file for divorce first so they control the narrative. He pulled out a worn notebook. You let him think he's the smartest person in the room while you build your case brick by brick. Can you do that? Elena thought of Marcus's dismissive tone, his cold eyes, the way he had made her feel like an intruder in her own home. Yes, she said, I can do that. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena became someone she barely recognized. She smiled at Marcus over breakfast while photographing his calendar when he left the room. She kissed him goodbye each morning while noting which cologne he wore, which suit he chose. She played the dutiful wife while building a timeline of his deceptions on a hidden app on her phone. It felt like putting on armor, like finding pieces of herself that had been lost. Diana helped, providing legal guidance without asking too many questions. Elena was not ready to admit out loud what she suspected, saying it would make it real. And some part of her, the part that remembered their early years together, still hoped she was wrong. That hope died on a rainy Thursday afternoon when Walker called. I have what you need. Can you come to my office? Elena made an excuse to Maria about a doctor's appointment and took a cab to Queens. The folder Walker placed on his desk was thin, but the photographs inside were devastating. Marcus and a woman at a restaurant, their body language intimate. Marcus and the same woman leaving a building on the Upper East Side, his hand on the small of her back. Marcus and the woman on a beach, somewhere tropical, her head on his shoulder as they watched the sunset. Her name is Vivian Cross, Walker said, former PR consultant. The affair has been going on at least 18 months. He set her up in a 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper East Side. $15,000 a month, paid through a shell company called Meridian Holdings. Elena stared at the photos. Her hands trembled, then went still. Same company has been receiving some interesting wire transfers, Walker continued. The kind that look a lot like someone moving money offshore before a divorce. You might want to talk to a forensic accountant. He's not just cheating. Elena's voice came out flat, controlled. He's planning to leave me with nothing. That's what the evidence suggests. Elena looked at the photo of Marcus on the beach, his arm around a woman half her age, smiling like he did not have a wife and daughter waiting at home, like he had not promised to love and honor her until death. Something inside her shifted. The last remnants of denial crumbled away, leaving behind something harder, something colder. What's my next step? Walker almost smiled. Now we build a case that will destroy him. Elena had every intention of following Walker's advice. She would be patient, strategic. She would build her case brick by brick until it was unassailable, then strike when Marcus least expected it. That plan lasted exactly 4 days. It was a Saturday morning when everything fell apart. Marcus announced over breakfast that he was going to the office to catch up on paperwork. Elena nodded, smiled, and watched him leave, wearing his best suit and the cologne that was not for her. She waited 10 minutes. Then she went to his home office. The laptop was password protected. But Marcus had never changed the combination to his safe. Their wedding anniversary. A cruel irony that was not lost on her. Inside she found bank statements, account numbers, transfer records showing $30 million moved to offshore accounts over the past 2 years. And at the bottom, a draft of a divorce petition dated 6 months ago. 6 months. He had been planning this for 6 months. While she organized charity galas and attended parent-teacher conferences and grew his child inside her body, he had been systematically dismantling their life. The rage that consumed her was unlike anything she had ever felt. Cold and hot at once, blinding. She gathered the documents, stuffed them in her bag, and drove to the address Walker had given her. The Upper East Side apartment building was exactly the kind of place Marcus would choose. Elegant, discreet, expensive. She talked her way past the doorman with a story about being an old friend, then rode the elevator to the 12th floor. When Vivian Cross opened the door, Elena felt a strange sense of calm descend. The woman was beautiful, of course. Tall, dark-haired, younger. She was wearing silk loungewear that probably cost more than most people's rent. And her expression shifted from confusion to recognition to horror in the space of 3 seconds. "You must be the wife?" Elena said pleasantly. "I thought it was time we met." She pushed past Vivian into the apartment, taking in the designer furniture, the fresh flowers, the photos on the mantelpiece showing Vivian and Marcus at various locations. Paris, Milan, the Caribbean. "He took you to St. Bart's," Elena said, touching a frame. "That was supposed to be our anniversary trip. I had to cancel because my mother fell. He told me he was staying home to work. Mrs. Hartwell, I think you should leave." "Did he tell you about me? About our daughter? About the baby I'm carrying?" Elena turned to face Vivian, and something in her expression made the younger woman take a step back. "Or did he tell you what he tells everyone? That our marriage is over, that we're separated, that I'm difficult, unstable, that it's only a matter of time?" Vivian's silence was answer enough. "He's a liar," Elena said. "Everything about your relationship is built on lies. He doesn't love you. He doesn't love anyone except himself. And when he's done using you, he'll throw you away just like he's throwing me away." She left before Vivian could respond, the strange calm still wrapped around her like a shield. She drove home, parked in the underground garage, and sat in her car for 20 minutes, trying to process what she had done. Walker had warned her. Diana had warned her. But the fury had been too much. The betrayal too raw. She had shown her hand, and now she would pay the price. Marcus was waiting for her when she walked through the door. "Where have you been?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were dangerous. Vivian had called him. Of course she had. "I went for a drive." "Really?" He moved toward her, and Elena forced herself not to step back. "Because I got an interesting call from my friend Vivian. She said my wife stopped by to threaten her." "I didn't threaten anyone." "You showed up uninvited at her apartment. You made accusations. You scared her." Marcus's voice dropped, turning soft and cruel. "I think we need to discuss what's happening here, Elena. What's happening is that you've been cheating on me for 18 months. What's happening is that you've hidden $30 million in offshore accounts. What's happening is that you filed divorce papers 6 months ago without telling me." She threw the documents from the safe on the table between them. Marcus looked at them, then he looked at her, and his expression shifted from anger to something far more dangerous: calculation. "Elena?" His voice became gentle, concerned. "Where did you get these?" "From your safe. Our wedding anniversary combination. Remember, the day you promised to love and honor me? Sweetheart, you're clearly not well. The pregnancy hormones, the stress of the charity work. I think you might be having some kind of breakdown. Don't you dare gaslight me. You broke into my private safe. You stalked my business associate. You're making wild accusations based on documents you don't understand." He pulled out his phone. "I think I need to call Dr. Reynolds. Discuss whether this environment is stable for Lily." Elena froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you hired a private investigator to stalk me, that you've been behaving erratically for weeks, that your mental state is concerning." Marcus stepped closer, his eyes cold. "I'm saying that maybe Lily should stay with my mother for a while, for her safety." "You wouldn't. Wouldn't I?" His smile was a knife. I have the best lawyers in the city. I have resources. I have a reputation as a devoted father. You have what? Photos that could easily be of business meetings? A PI I'll have discredited by morning? He was so close now she could smell that cologne. The one that was not for her. Be very careful, Elena. You're 7 months pregnant. You have no income, no assets in your name. Everything, the apartment, the accounts, the lifestyle, it's all in my control. He left her standing there, surrounded by evidence that meant nothing. Because he was right about all of it. She had given up her career, her independence, her sense of self, all for a man who saw her as property, not a partner. And now he was going to take her daughter too. Elena sank to the floor, her hand pressed against her belly, where her unborn child kicked, oblivious to the disaster unfolding. She had confronted him too soon, shown her hand before she was ready, and in doing so, she had given him exactly what he needed to destroy her. The tears came then, not delicate, ladylike tears, but great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the marriage she had believed in, for the future she had planned, for the woman she used to be, buried somewhere beneath years of compromise and silence. When Diana found her 2 hours later, Elena was still on the floor, surrounded by documents that proved everything and protected nothing. Okay, Diana said, pulling her friend to her feet. Pity party's over. Get up. He's going to take Lily. He's going to say I'm crazy. He's going to try, and we're going to stop him, but not by falling apart, by being smarter, faster, and more strategic than he's ever been in his life. Diana gripped Elena's shoulders, forcing eye contact. You were the best litigator I knew. Find her again. Elena looked at her friend, at the determination in her eyes, at the refusal to accept defeat. First thing, Diana continued, we document everything, every threat, every conversation. Start a journal with dates and times. Record what he says when he doesn't know you're listening. Connecticut is one-party consent. Anything he says to you is admissible. He has all the money, all the lawyers. He has money and lawyers. We have the truth, and we have you, that incredible brain that used to terrify opposing counsel. Diana's voice softened. Don't let him win, Elena. Don't let him take everything you are. Elena thought of Lily's face, of the baby moving inside her, of the woman in the mirror that she no longer recognized. I'm not going to survive this, she said slowly. I'm going to win this. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in a small, one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, surveying the wall that had become her obsession. The apartment was rented under Diana's name, paid for in cash. No connection to Elena or the Hartwell family. A safe space where she could think, plan, and build her case without Marcus watching her every move. The wall was covered with photographs, documents, and colored string connecting events and people like a conspiracy theorist's dream. Marcus, Vivian, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the timeline of his deception stretching back years. Walker stood beside her, nodding approvingly. You know, he said, in 20 years of PI work, I've never seen a client build a better murder board than me. It's honestly a little offensive. I went to Harvard Law. Obsessive documentation is literally my love language. Walker almost smiled. So what's the play? Elena traced the connections on the wall. Marcus's whole world depends on two things: his father's approval and his political future. He's planning to run for Senate next year. His entire campaign will be built on family values, on being a devoted husband and father, and you want to take that away from him. I want to destroy it, completely, so that everyone sees him for what he really is. That's a tall order. The man has resources, connections, the best PR team money can buy. He also has a father who built the family empire on integrity and loyalty. Elena tapped a photograph of Richard Hartwell. Richard is old school. He values honor above profits. He's been suspicious of Marcus for a while, thinks he's been sloppy and arrogant with the family business. Walker studied the photograph. You think the old man would turn against his own son? If he had proof of what Marcus has done? Absolutely. Richard would burn down his own legacy before he'd let it be corrupted. Elena turned to face Walker. The problem is, he would never believe me directly. I'm the scorned wife. Everything I say is suspect. So we need him to discover the truth himself. Exactly. Or think he does. It was a long game, a dangerous game. But it was the only game Elena had left. Over the next weeks, Elena played the role of her life. She smiled at Marcus over dinner while recording his threats on her phone. She attended family functions with apparent grace while gathering intelligence about Hartwell Industries. She performed the part of the dutiful wife while systematically building a case that would bring everything crashing down. The forensic accountant Diana recommended found even more than they expected. Marcus had not just been hiding assets. He had been embezzling from the family company. Small amounts, easily hidden, but adding up to nearly $2 million over 5 years. Money that flowed through shell companies to pay for apartments, jewelry, vacations, all the accoutrements of his secret life. He's been sloppy, the accountant said, spreading documents across the table. Probably thought no one would ever look this closely, but the paper trail is clear. Wire transfers from company accounts to Meridian Holdings, Meridian to the apartment lease, Meridian to Cartier for jewelry purchases, Meridian to a travel agency for flights and hotels. How much can you prove? Enough to put him in prison if someone wanted to press charges, but that someone would have to be in a position of authority at the company. Richard Hartwell, the patriarch. The only person with the power to bring down his own son. Elena gathered the evidence, organized it into a compelling narrative, and began to plan how to get it into Richard's hands without revealing her involvement. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Caroline Hartwell had never liked Elena. Marcus's younger sister had always viewed her with suspicion, believing her brother's complaints about his difficult wife. She worked at the Hartwell Foundation, the family's charitable arm, and she treated Elena with barely concealed contempt at family gatherings. But Caroline had one weakness. Her devotion to the foundation was absolute. It was her life's work, her identity, her contribution to the family legacy, and Marcus had been stealing from it. Elena discovered this almost by accident. While reviewing the financial documents, she noticed a series of consulting fees paid by the foundation to Meridian Holdings, $500,000 over 3 years, supposedly for strategic planning services that had never been rendered, money that had gone directly to Vivian Cross. Elena knew what she had to do. She arranged to run into Caroline at a gallery opening, timing her approach carefully. She looked visibly pregnant and exhausted, playing up the fragility that Marcus had weaponized against her. Caroline. She offered a tentative smile. I just wanted to say, I understand why you're supporting Marcus. He's your brother. Caroline's expression was cool. We have nothing to discuss. You're right. Elena let her voice tremble slightly. I hope you'll look after Lily. She loves her aunt. She keeps asking about the butterflies in your garden. She walked away before Caroline could respond, leaving behind the image of a broken woman who only wanted what was best for her daughter. 2 days later, an anonymous package arrived at Caroline's office. Inside were documents showing the foundation payments to Meridian Holdings, along with evidence of where that money had actually gone. Elena watched from a distance as the seeds of doubt took root. The first sign that the plan was working came 3 days later. Elena was at the Brooklyn apartment reviewing documents with Walker when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Coffee shop on Madison and 63rd, tomorrow at 2. Come alone. C. Caroline." Elena showed the message to Walker, who frowned. Could be a trap. Marcus could be using his sister to get information. Or Caroline found what she was looking for and wants to talk. You trust her? Elena thought about it. I trust that she loves the foundation more than she loves her brother. If he's been stealing from her life's work, she'll want blood. The coffee shop was small and discreet, the kind of place where wealthy women discussed affairs and divorces without being overheard. Caroline was already there when Elena arrived, sitting in a corner booth, her face pale and drawn. You sent those documents, Caroline said without preamble. Elena sat down. Yes. Why? Why would you help me? I'm not helping you. I'm destroying Marcus. You're just a means to an end. Elena's voice was matter of fact. But our interests happen to align. He's been lying to both of us. He's been stealing from your foundation to pay for his mistress. The same mistress he's planning to bring to your father's 70th birthday dinner next month. Caroline flinched. He wouldn't. He's arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. And he wants to introduce Vivian to the family, start positioning her as his future wife. Elena leaned forward. Your father doesn't know about any of this. The affair, the embezzlement, the offshore accounts. If he did, if he had proof that couldn't be dismissed as a scorned wife's accusations, what do you think he would do? Caroline was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. He would destroy Marcus himself. Exactly. The alliance was fragile at first. Caroline was still suspicious, still half convinced that Elena was exaggerating or manipulating, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, wire transfers, photographs, a paper trail that even a skeptic could not dismiss. Over the next 2 weeks, Caroline became Elena's unlikely partner. She dug into the family finances with an insider's access, uncovering even more fraud than Elena had found. She provided information about Richard's schedule, his habits, his blind spots, and she began to prepare the ground for the revelation that would change everything. Elena felt hope for the first time in months. The case against Marcus was airtight. Caroline was fully committed. Richard's birthday dinner was 2 weeks away, the perfect stage for the truth to emerge. She should have known it was too easy. The first blow came on a Tuesday morning. Elena woke to banging on her door, a process server holding a thick envelope. Elena Hartwell. You've been served. The divorce petition was dated 3 days before her confrontation with Marcus. He had been planning this all along, waiting for the right moment to strike, and now he had. Diana read through the documents, her face growing grimmer with each page. He's claiming you're mentally unstable, that you've been neglecting Lily, that you've been financially reckless. She looked up at Elena. He's asking for full custody. He can't. There's more. He's frozen all joint accounts pending investigation of financial irregularities. He claims you've been hiding money. The irony was bitter. He had turned her own strategy against her, accused her of the very crimes he had committed. And he had struck first, seizing control of the narrative. The second blow came that afternoon. Margaret Hartwell, Marcus's mother, appeared on a local news program. Her voice was soft, her concern seemingly genuine. We're very worried about Elena's mental state. She's been erratic, paranoid. We just want what's best for little Lily. Then Caroline called, her voice thick with tears. I'm so sorry, Elena. He found out about everything. He came to me this morning, threatened to tell Dad that I've been conspiring against the family. He said if I don't support him publicly, he'll destroy my career at the foundation. What did you do? I didn't have a choice. He was going to... The line went dead. That evening, Elena watched in horror as Caroline appeared beside her brother at a press conference, supporting his version of events. The family had closed ranks. Elena was alone. But the worst blow came 3 days later. She was at the Brooklyn apartment when there was a knock at the door. 2 people in suits, holding identification badges. Child Protective Services. We've received a report of child endangerment. We need to speak with your daughter. Elena's blood ran cold. That's impossible. There's been no endangerment. Ma'am, we have documented concerns about your mental stability and your ability to provide a safe environment. This is a routine welfare check. There was nothing routine about it. Marcus had called CPS on his own wife, weaponizing the system against her. And as Elena watched the social workers interview Lily, saw the fear and confusion in her daughter's eyes, she realized just how far he was willing to go. The ruling came a week later. Temporary custody to Marcus, pending psychological evaluation of Elena. Supervised visitation only. Elena stood on the steps of the family court, watching the car pull away with her daughter in the back seat. Lily's face was pressed against the window, her eyes searching for her mother, not understanding why she could not come. That image would haunt Elena for the rest of her life. The system that was supposed to protect children had been bought and paid for by the man who was destroying them. And Elena, for all her planning and evidence and strategy, was powerless to stop it. The Brooklyn apartment felt like a tomb. Elena sat in the dark, surrounded by the evidence that had proven useless. The murder board on the wall mocked her with its neat connections and careful documentation. All that work, all that planning, and Marcus had dismantled it with a phone call and a checkbook. Diana found her there 3 days later, having let herself in with the spare key. When was the last time you ate? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Diana sat down across from her friend, her voice gentle but firm. I know this feels like the end, but it's not. We still have the evidence. We still have the truth. The truth doesn't matter. He has Lily. He has the money. He has the family. Elena's voice was hollow. What do I have? You have the truth. And you have me. And you have that incredible brain that used to terrify opposing counsel. Diana reached out, taking Elena's hand. Marcus thinks he's won. That's his weakness. He's not looking over his shoulder anymore. He's not being careful. Elena looked up. Something stirred in her chest, faint but present. The birthday dinner. What? Richard's 70th birthday. It's in 2 weeks. The whole family will be there. Marcus will want to show off, prove he's the golden son. Elena's voice grew stronger. If I can get evidence to Richard before the dinner, if he sees the truth with his own eyes. After everything that's happened, you still think you can turn Richard? I think Richard is the only person Marcus is actually afraid of, the only person who can take away what he really cares about. Elena stood up, walking to the murder board. I've been fighting Marcus in court, playing by his rules, on his turf. That's where he's strongest. So I stop fighting him in court. I fight him in the only arena that matters, his father's approval. The new strategy required different tactics. Instead of building a legal case, Elena began building a family case. She studied Richard Hartwell obsessively, learning his habits, his values, his blind spots. She identified the people he trusted, the routes through which information reached him, and she waited for the opportunity to strike. It came in the form of Margaret Hartwell. Marcus's mother had never been a strong woman. She had spent her life in her husband's shadow, deferring to his judgment, avoiding conflict at all costs. She had supported Marcus publicly because she was afraid of the alternative. But Margaret was also a mother, and somewhere beneath the fear In the compliance, there was a woman who remembered holding her grandchild for the first time, who had seen something troubling in her son's eyes long before anyone else. Elena approached her carefully, choosing a moment when Marcus was traveling and Richard was occupied with business. A chance meeting at a charity luncheon, seemingly accidental. "Mrs. Hartwell, I was hoping to see you." Margaret's expression flickered between guilt and sympathy. "Elena, I don't think we should be talking. I understand. I just wanted you to know that I don't blame you for any of it. You were protecting your family. That's what mothers do." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted—" "He told us you were unstable, that Lily wasn't safe. And you believed him because he's your son, because believing otherwise is too painful." Elena's voice was soft, understanding. "But you know, don't you? You've always known." The silence stretched between them. "Lily cries herself to sleep every night," Margaret said finally. "She keeps asking for you, keeps asking why Mommy can't come home." "I know. He brings that woman around sometimes. When Richard isn't there, makes Lily call her Miss Vivian." Margaret's voice cracked. "It's wrong, all of it. I've known for years, but I didn't have the courage to—" "You have it now. You can help me, help Lily." Margaret looked at Elena for a long moment, then she nodded. "What do you need me to do?" The plan came together piece by piece. Caroline, who had publicly betrayed Elena, was secretly racked with guilt. A carefully worded message brought her back into the fold, more committed than ever. "He threatened to destroy my career," Caroline explained, over encrypted messages. "But he's already destroyed everything I believed about our family. I'd rather lose the foundation than let him get away with this." Richard's personal assistant, a woman named Helen who had worked for the family for 30 years, was the final piece. She had watched Marcus grow from a charming boy into a man she barely recognized. When Elena approached her with evidence of what he had done, she agreed to help. "Mr. Hartwell receives a briefing folder every morning," Helen explained. "Financial summaries, calendar, important correspondence. If certain documents were to find their way into that folder, you would be risking everything. I've given 40 years to this family. I won't let that boy destroy what his father built." Elena had her team, her strategy, her moment. 2 nights before the birthday dinner, everything was in place. The evidence was organized into an irrefutable narrative. Caroline had confirmed that Marcus was indeed planning to bring Vivian, introduced as a colleague from the London office. Margaret had arranged for Elena to receive an invitation, ostensibly to discuss custody arrangements. Elena allowed herself, for the first time in weeks, to feel hope. She should have known better. The call came at 11 o'clock on the night before the dinner. Elena was reviewing her plan one final time when Walker's number appeared on her phone. His voice was grim. "We have a problem. A big one. Marcus found the apartment." Elena's blood ran cold. "What? How?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is he knows everything. The investigation, Caroline's involvement, your plan for tomorrow. He was tipped off. Looks that way. Someone in your circle. I don't know who yet." Elena's phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. "Nice try, sweetheart, but you're always 3 steps behind. Stay away from my father's dinner, or I'll have you arrested for stalking. Also, I'm moving up the custody hearing, Monday morning. You won't even have time to get a lawyer." Another buzz, then another. "Check the news. Your mother gave quite an interview." Elena fumbled with her phone, pulling up the local news site. There it was, her own mother, sitting in a television studio, speaking with practiced sympathy. Elena has always been dramatic. Marcus has been so patient with her. He's such a wonderful father. I just hope she gets the help she needs. He paid off her debts, Walker said quietly. $200,000 to her creditors. Suddenly she's Team Marcus. Elena stared at the screen, watching her mother betray her with every word. The woman who had raised her, who had taught her to fight for what was right, bought and paid for like everything else in Marcus's world. Her phone rang again. Caroline. Elena, I'm so sorry. He found my emails. He confronted me this morning. He went to Dad before I could explain anything. Dad thinks we're the ones conspiring against the family. He told me to stay away from the dinner tomorrow. Caroline? I tried, Elena. I really tried, but it's over. He's won. The line went dead. Elena sat in the darkness of the apartment, surrounded by evidence that no one would ever see. She had been so close, so certain that this time, finally, the truth would prevail. But Marcus had been playing this game longer than she had. He had anticipated every move, countered every strategy, corrupted every ally. He had turned her own mother against her, poisoned his father's mind before she could speak. The system protected whoever could afford the best lawyers. And the truth only mattered if someone was willing to listen. She was still sitting there when the sun rose, having not slept at all. The morning of Richard Hartwell's 70th birthday dawned clear and crisp, a perfect October day. Elena watched the light creep across the floor of the apartment, illuminating the evidence wall that now seemed like a monument to her failure. She should call Diana, should start preparing for the custody hearing that Marcus had weaponized against her, should accept that she had lost and focus on salvaging what she could. Instead, she sat motionless, trying to remember the woman she used to be, the one who had never backed down from a fight, the one who had believed that truth and justice actually meant something. A knock at the door startled her from her reverie. She opened it to find Margaret Hartwell standing in the hallway. Beside her, clutching a worn, stuffed elephant, was Lily. "Mommy!" Elena fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around her daughter, breathing in the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo. Tears streamed down her face as she held the child she had been forbidden to see. "How?" she managed, looking up at Margaret. She wouldn't stop crying. She wanted her mother. "I couldn't, babe." Margaret's voice broke. "I know what my son has become. I've known for years. I was just too weak to face it. The dinner tonight, he's bringing that woman." "I know." Margaret pulled something from her purse. An invitation, heavy cream paper with gold embossing. Richard believes Marcus's lies, for now. But if he saw the truth with his own eyes, if someone was there to show him. Elena looked at the invitation, at her daughter's face, at the woman who had finally found her courage. "You're still family, Elena. You always will be." Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Are you going to fight the bad guy, Mommy?" Elena knelt down, looking into her daughter's eyes, eyes that still believed in happy endings, in mothers who protected their children, in good triumphing over evil. "Yes, baby, Mommy's going to fight." The Hartwell estate rose out of the Connecticut countryside like something from another century. A magnificent stone manor surrounded by manicured gardens. It had been in the family for 4 generations. Tonight, every window blazed with light and luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Elena sat in her borrowed sedan at the end of the drive, watching guests arrive. Her simple black dress felt like armor. In her purse was the flash drive containing everything: the financial records, the offshore accounts, the foundation theft, and the recorded evidence that Walker had assembled. Her hands were steady. Her mind was clear. For the first time in months, she felt like herself. Her phone buzzed, a text from Diana. "Emergency motion filed, ready to execute the moment you give the word. Make him pay." Then one from Walker. "All the documents backed up in 3 locations. Whatever happens tonight, the evidence survives. Make the bastard cry. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Then she started the car and drove toward the house. Inside, the estate was even more impressive than she remembered. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across rooms filled with antique furniture and original artwork. Servers in crisp uniforms circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The cream of Connecticut society mingled beneath painted ceilings, their laughter and chatter creating a symphony of privilege. Marcus was holding court near the fireplace, his arm around Vivian Cross. She wore a crimson Valentino dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace, the latest gift from her lover. She smiled and laughed at all the right moments, playing the role of the sophisticated colleague to perfection. But Elena saw the truth. The proprietary way Vivian touched Marcus's arm, the possessive gleam in her eyes, the subtle performance of a woman who believed she was about to inherit a fortune. Caroline caught Elena's eye from across the room, a tiny nod. Then she drifted toward her brother, positioning herself for what was about to happen. Richard Hartwell stood near the bar, accepting birthday wishes from guests. He was smaller than Elena remembered, age having diminished his physical presence. But his eyes remained sharp and intelligent. He missed nothing. When those eyes found Elena in the doorway, they registered surprise. Then something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or calculation. Marcus saw her next. His face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock, then fury, then a careful mask of concern that did not reach his eyes. Elena! He crossed to her quickly, his voice low and controlled. What are you doing here? It's your father's birthday. I came to pay my respects. You weren't invited? Actually, I was. Elena produced the invitation. Your mother thought it was important that family be together tonight. Marcus's eyes flickered to Margaret, who stood nearby with an expression of quiet defiance. Something dark passed across his face. You need to leave, now, before you embarrass yourself. I'm not the one who's going to be embarrassed tonight. Before he could respond, Richard's voice cut through the tension. Elena? What a pleasant surprise. The patriarch approached, his gait steady despite his 70 years. He took Elena's hands in his, and for a moment, genuine warmth flickered in his eyes. Mr. Hartwell, happy birthday. I wasn't sure we'd see you tonight. Given the, circumstances, family is important. Isn't that what you always taught us? Richard studied her face, searching for something. Whatever he found made him nod slowly. Indeed it is. He turned to his son. Marcus, I believe dinner is about to be served. Shall we? The dining room was a masterpiece of understated elegance. A table that seated 20 stretched beneath another crystal chandelier set with china that had been in the family for a century. Place cards directed guests to their seats. Elena found herself next to Caroline, across from Vivian, with Marcus at the foot of the table and Richard at the head. A strategic arrangement that put all the key players in view. The first course was served, a delicate soup that Elena barely tasted. Conversation flowed around her, the usual topics of business and politics and society gossip. Marcus was performing brilliantly, the attentive son, the gracious host, the devoted family man. Vivian played her part too, asking intelligent questions about the business, expressing admiration for Richard's achievements, presenting herself as the successful young executive that Marcus had claimed. But Elena caught the sideways glances, the subtle touches that lingered too long, the way Marcus's eyes followed Vivian when he thought no one was looking. Richard saw it too. She was certain of it. The main course arrived, lamb that Elena pushed around her plate. The moment was approaching. She could feel it building like a storm on the horizon. Finally, as dessert was being cleared, Richard rose from his seat, if I might have everyone's attention. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the patriarch. 70 years is a long time to be alive. Long enough to build something, long enough to watch it grow, long enough to learn what really matters. Richard picked up his champagne glass. Family, legacy, truth. These are the foundations upon which everything else is built. He looked around the table, his gaze touching each face before moving on. I would like to propose a toast to honesty, to integrity, and to the people who embody those values. He was about to raise his glass when Elena spoke. Before you toast, Mr. Hartwell, I have a birthday gift for you. Every head in the room turned toward her. Marcus's face went white. Elena, this isn't the time. His voice was sharp with warning. Actually, I think this is exactly the time. Elena rose from her seat, pulling the flash drive from her purse. This contains 18 months of financial records. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands holding $30 million that should have been in the family trust. Wire transfers from Hartwell Industries to shell companies that paid for apartments, jewelry, and vacations for your son's mistress. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Vivian's face went pale beneath her careful makeup. It also contains evidence of $500,000 embezzled from the Hartwell Foundation, money that was supposed to help children in need, diverted to pay for consulting services that were never rendered. Elena placed the flash drive on the table in front of Richard. But perhaps the most interesting item is a series of recordings. Your son discussing bribes to city officials, bragging about creative accounting to avoid taxes, and referring to you, Mr. Hartwell, as, and I quote, a senile old fool who needs to just die already so I can run things properly. The silence that followed was absolute. Richard picked up the flash drive, turning it over in his hands. His expression was unreadable. These are serious accusations. They are, and every single one can be proven. Marcus found his voice. Father, she's lying. She's been unstable for months. This is exactly the kind of paranoid fantasy that made us seek custody of Lily. Then you won't mind if we verify her claims. Richard's voice was ice. Helen, please bring my laptop. The next 20 minutes were excruciating. Richard sat at the head of the table, systematically reviewing the documents on the flash drive. The other guests watched in stunned silence, too shocked to speak, too fascinated to look away. Elena remained standing, her eyes fixed on Marcus. She watched the arrogance drain from his face, replaced by a desperation she had never seen before. He tried twice to speak, to offer explanations, but Richard silenced him with a look. Finally, the patriarch closed the laptop. Is it true? His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. For once in his life, he felt safe. He had no smooth answer, no clever deflection. Richard turned to Vivian. Miss Cross, I believe my son introduced you as a colleague from our London office. Is that accurate? Vivian's composure cracked. She looked at Marcus, hoping for rescue that would not come. He told me the marriage was over, she whispered. He said they were separated, that you were out of touch with the business. I see. Richard's jaw tightened. And the recordings Elena mentioned, the ones where my son discusses bribing officials and committing tax fraud, do those exist? Vivian hesitated. Then something shifted in her expression, a calculation, a survival instinct. Yes, they exist. I have copies. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. What? I've been recording you for months, Marcus. Everything you said about the bribes, the tax fraud, all of it. I was going to use it as insurance in case you didn't follow through on your promises. She pulled out her phone, holding it up like a shield. I'm not going down with you. I'll cooperate, with any investigation. I'll testify to everything." The betrayal on Marcus's face was almost comical. He had been so certain of his own cleverness, so confident that he could manipulate everyone around him. And now, in front of his father, his family, and Connecticut's elite society, he was watching his carefully constructed world collapse. "You treacherous little—" "Enough." Richard's voice cracked like a whip. "I have heard enough." He rose from his seat, and despite his 70 years, he seemed to tower over the room. "I built this family from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks for 30 years to create something that would last. I taught my children the value of integrity, of loyalty, of earning their place through honest work." His eyes fixed on Marcus. "And you took everything I built and used it to fund your sordid affair. You stole from the foundation that bears our name. You lied to your wife, your family, and me." Marcus tried to speak, but Richard cut him off. "I don't want to hear it. Not your excuses, not your justifications, not another word from your lying mouth." He picked up his champagne glass, still full. "I proposed a toast to honesty and integrity. Those are not qualities my son possesses." He turned to Elena. "I owe you an apology. I believed his lies. I let him convince me that you were the problem, that you were unstable, that Lily was better off without you." His voice softened. "I was wrong, and I am sorry." Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Richard turned back to his son. "Effective immediately, you are removed from all positions at Hartwell Industries. Your access to company accounts is terminated. Tomorrow morning, these documents will be reviewed by our legal team, and if they contain what Elena says, and I have no doubt they do, they will be forwarded to the appropriate authorities." "Father, you can't—" "I am not finished." Richard's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You are disinherited from the family trust. Every penny I intended to leave you will go elsewhere, to your sister, to your children, to anyone except you." Marcus's face went gray. "You are welcome to contest this in court, but I think you'll find that judges are not sympathetic to men who steal from their own families." Richard set down his glass with a decisive click. "Now get out of my house, and take your mistress with you." The guests parted, like the Red Sea, as Marcus stumbled toward the door. Vivian was already gone, having slipped away during Richard's pronouncement. The staff watched with barely concealed satisfaction as the golden sun was cast out of paradise. At the threshold, Marcus turned back. His eyes found Elena. "This isn't over." "Yes," Elena said quietly. "It is." The door closed behind him, and the room exhaled. Richard approached Elena, taking her hands in his again. "I know this doesn't make up for what you've been through, but I want you to know. The custody order will be reversed. I'll make certain of it. Lily belongs with her mother." The tears Elena had been holding back finally fell. "Thank you. Thank me by raising my grandchildren to be better than their father." Richard managed a weary smile. "Now, I believe we still have a birthday to celebrate, and considerably fewer guests to celebrate with." The courthouse hearing 3 weeks later was brief and devastating for Marcus. Diana presented the evidence methodically, building a case that left no room for argument: the financial fraud, the embezzlement, the recorded threats, the systematic campaign of manipulation against Elena. Marcus's lawyers tried to fight, but the weight of proof was overwhelming. The same system that had been used against Elena was now crushing the man who had weaponized it. Judge Patricia Coleman looked at Marcus with undisguised contempt. "Mr. Hartwell, in my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a case of such calculated manipulation. You used every resource at your disposal to destroy your wife and take her children, not because you cared about their welfare, but because You wanted to control her. She turned to Elena. Full custody is awarded to Mrs. Hartwell. Child support and alimony will be determined at the next hearing, pending resolution of the criminal investigation. Criminal investigation. The words hung in the air like a promise. Elena hugged Diana, then turned to find Lily running toward her across the courtroom. Mommy, did we win? Elena knelt down, gathering her daughter in her arms. We won, baby. We won. 6 months later, on a crisp April morning, Elena stood on the porch of a beautiful cottage on the Hartwell estate grounds. Richard had insisted she live there, close to family, but with her own space. The cottage had a garden where Lily could play, a nursery for baby William, and a home office where Elena was rebuilding her legal career. She was not practicing divorce law anymore. She was focusing on family advocacy, helping women navigate the system that had nearly destroyed her. Diana had offered her a partnership, and they were building something meaningful together. You look happy. Elena turned to find Richard approaching, a cup of coffee in each hand. I am happy. She accepted the coffee, gesturing for him to join her on the porch swing. I didn't think I would be again, but I am. You've earned it. Richard settled beside her, looking out over the garden where Caroline was pushing Lily on a swing. I've been meaning to tell you something about the foundation. Oh? I'm restructuring the board. Caroline will be president, of course, but I want you to join as well. Your legal mind, your understanding of what families actually need, it would be invaluable. Elena considered the offer. A year ago, she would have dismissed it as charity, pity for the scorned wife, but she was not that woman anymore. I'd be honored. Good. Richard smiled, the expression transforming his stern face. You know, I always wanted you to be more involved in the family business. I thought I had to be silent to be accepted. Never again. You're the strongest person in this family. You always were. Caroline arrived with Lily on her shoulders and baby William in his carrier. Am I interrupting the moment of intergenerational bonding? Just plotting how to spend your inheritance on worthy causes. Richard rose to take his grandson. This one has your chin, Elena. Strong, stubborn. He has his grandfather's eyes. They stood together in the spring sunshine, 4 generations of the Hartwell family, redefined and rebuilt on a foundation of truth. Elena's phone buzzed. A news alert. Marcus Hartwell pleads guilty to federal fraud charges. Sentencing hearing scheduled for next month. She showed the screen to Caroline, who smiled grimly. 15 years? The prosecutor is pushing for 20. The judge is not sympathetic. Good. Caroline hesitated. I should probably feel something. He's my brother. But when I think about what he did to you, to Lily, to all of us, you don't have to apologize for not feeling sympathy for someone who earned their consequences. Elena pocketed her phone. Some people are beyond redemption. The best we can do is protect ourselves from them. That night, after Lily was in bed and William was sleeping peacefully in his crib, Elena sat alone on the porch, watching the stars emerge. Her phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You took everything from me. I'll take everything from you, M. Elena looked at the message for a long moment. A year ago, it would have terrified her, would have sent her spiraling into fear and desperation. Now she simply deleted it. Let him try. Let him rage from his prison cell. Plotting revenge he would never have the opportunity to enact. She had survived his best efforts to destroy her. She had faced the full weight of his wealth and power and manipulation. And she had won. Not because the system protected her, not because someone rescued her, but because she had found the strength to rescue herself. Elena looked up at the stars, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. The woman she had been, lost in a golden cage. The woman she had become, forged in fire. The woman she was still becoming, day by day. She had learned something important in the past year, something worth sharing. The people who try to diminish you, who tell you that you are too much or not enough, they are not seeing you clearly. They are seeing their own reflection, their own fear, their own limitations. Your only job is to see yourself clearly, to know your own worth, to refuse to be smaller than you are. Some women wait to be rescued. Some women burn down the castle and build a better one from the ashes. Elena had been told her whole marriage that she was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. Turns out, she was exactly enough. And now, she was just getting started. The cottage door opened, and Lily padded out in her pajamas, clutching her worn stuffed elephant. "Mommy, I had a bad dream." Elena opened her arms, and her daughter climbed into her lap. "What was it about, baby?" "I dreamed we were lost, but then you found us. You always find us." Elena pressed a kiss to her daughter's hair, holding her close. "Always, baby. I will always find you." They sat together under the stars, mother and daughter, survivors both. The past was behind them. A story of betrayal and courage, and ultimately, triumph. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, but full of possibility. And for the first time, in longer than Elena could remember, she was not afraid. She was ready. If you have ever felt powerless against someone who thought their money made them untouchable, this story is for you. Stay until the end, because the moment when everything falls apart is worth every second of the wait. And if this story speaks to you, if it reminds you of your own battles or gives you hope for your own victory, let me know in the comments. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story of courage, betrayal, and ultimate justice. Now, let us begin. Closing statement. Thank you for staying with us until the end. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to bring you not just entertainment, but meaning, inspiration, and valuable life lessons. Every story we tell is crafted with purpose, designed to remind you of your own strength and the power of truth. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your support helps us continue creating content that matters. Until next time, remember, you are exactly enough. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. This content was researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories and valuable life lessons to our audience. Thank you for being part of our community.